They always found a way to screw something up before lunch. One kid left on the wrong bus. Two drivers called out, and dispatch didn't answer. The state testing roster got posted with last year's IDs, and payroll for substitutes was 4 weeks behind. Again. I'd already handled all of it by the time anyone noticed anything was wrong. My name's Nina. I'm 43. I live in Dayton, Ohio. For the last 15 years, I've kept the wheels turning at Franklin Regional High, quietly, efficiently, without needing my name on a damn newsletter. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I was the person who caught the scheduling error before the buses left. I flagged the state testing report before it went to the department. I had 3 different versions of the sub-payroll file ready to go, depending on who finally decided to sign off. Nobody asked how. Nobody cared. The principal? She was in the hallway taping up motivational posters about grit. The district office was all about vision alignment and whatever buzzwords they picked up from the last conference in Columbus. Meanwhile, I knew the cafeteria supplier was late because of a vendor dispute from 2 months ago. I'd already logged it. I wasn't just a secretary, I was the backbone. But the thing is, no one knew what I actually did. Not really. Maybe the janitor, Pete. Maybe 1 or 2 of the guidance counselors who still had brains in their heads. Everyone else thought I handled paperwork. Nope, I ran the system. Behind the front desk, I kept my own records. Not gossip, not secret dirt. Real stuff. Patterns in attendance that signaled family issues. Notes on vendor contracts with sketchy renewal terms. Policy memos that were quietly pushed through without review. I didn't share them. I just tracked it all, in my own format, on a drive no one else could see. And when the new superintendent came in, tall, loud, probably with a minor in marketing and a major in self-promotion, I knew right away. This guy wasn't here to run a school. He wanted to sell a story. He stood up at his first staff meeting, bold as hell, and said, "We're not just a school, we're a brand." Said it with a straight face too, like he was proud of it. Teachers stared at their coffee. Admins nodded like they knew what the hell he meant. I just updated my spreadsheet. I wasn't mad, not yet. I knew exactly what was coming, and I was already preparing. Not revenge, survival. I wasn't going down with them. But I'd sure as hell take notes on who did. Next Monday morning, I pulled into the lot and heard bass thumping before I even opened my door. Yup, there he was. Superintendent Mason. Standing by the front entrance in a tailored jacket and sunglasses, pumping his fists to some overproduced EDM track, blasting from portable speakers. Like he was about to hype a product launch instead of run a public high school. He called it Campus 2.0. He actually said that. "Welcome to Campus 2.0, everyone. This is where momentum meets mission." I walked past him without blinking. Inside, I turned the speakers off at the front desk and got to work. By noon, he'd fired Vice Principal Harris, the guy who'd been here since Clinton was in office, without warning. No handshake, no goodbye email, nothing. Just cleaned out his office while he was at lunch and told everyone Harris had stepped aside to explore new opportunities. No one believed that for a second. By Wednesday, he'd brought in some guy named Trent, former charter school something or other, as the Director of Academic Momentum. That was his actual title. Trent wore loafers with no socks and clapped after his own announcements. The teachers looked exhausted already. That Friday, our shared drive folders vanished. Not archived, deleted. Mason said they lacked vision and were cluttered with legacy processes. What he really meant was he clicked something he didn't understand and wiped half our compliance documentation, including the state lunch contract renewal files and 2 years of attendance audits. No one found out until invoices started bouncing back and the cafeteria manager nearly walked out. That night, I made private backups of everything I had and started scanning paper files into an external drive I kept in my bag. I didn't say a word. The next week, the attendance office was rebranded as Engagement HQ. He had a vinyl banner printed for it and brought in beanbags from his garage, along with a smart board that didn't power on. He made 2 guidance aides sit on the beanbags for a photo, posted it to the district's website like it was a revolution. I opened a folder on my personal drive. Contingency, FRH. Inside it, I started sorting every salvageable process we had. Food service, transportation logs, parent call chains, vendor contacts, late duty rotations, security coverage by period. Everything that mattered. Everything that would fall apart if one more file got deleted. I also dusted off something I hadn't touched in years. an old LLC I'd registered when I thought I might go solo as a school logistics consultant. DBA still valid. Bank account still open. Never really used it until now. I updated the name, adjusted the category to K-12 Operational Strategy, and changed the email to a new address no one in the district had. I wasn't planning to leave, but I also wasn't going to wait until someone pushed me out. By Thursday, Mason held a staff-wide vision sync in the gym and showed a slideshow with graphs that didn't have numbers. This is the trajectory of growth if we remove friction from our legacy infrastructure, he said, pointing at a line going upward. I sat in the back. My folder count had doubled that week. Afterward, Trent stopped by my desk. He smelled like body spray and ambition. "Hey, Nina, can we get you looped into the engagement pipeline?" I looked up at him. "I'm already in 12 pipelines. Which one is this?" He blinked. "Oh, student tracking innovation." "Right," I said, not moving. "Send it in an email." He never did. The next morning, I arrived early and watched the copier jam 6 times trying to print a batch of blank surveys labeled Staff Sentiment Optimization. I fixed the jam, took 1 copy for my records, and added it to my new folder. Reorg Theater. Evidence. I wasn't being dramatic. I just wanted proof. Because if this ship went down, I sure as hell wasn't going down without a paper trail. At 4:27 on a Friday, my inbox pinged. Subject line: Strategic Flow Sync. 4:45 p.m. Mandatory. No calendar invite, no warning. Just 15 minutes notice and a location. Admin Conference B. I didn't grab my notebook. I didn't need one. When I walked in, it was just Trent, still sockless, and a new admin I'd only seen twice in the building. Her name tag read, Strategic Implementation Coordinator, whatever the hell that meant. She smiled like I'd just won something. "Thanks for coming, Nina," she said. "This won't take long." Trent jumped in like he was pitching to investors. "We're realigning functional support zones to better reflect district-wide agility." "So," she cut him off. "Your role's been shifted to Instructional Support Advisor. Remote eligible." I blinked once. "You're removing me from the building." "Well, it's flexible placement," she said. "You can still support operations, just not from a dedicated office." I stared at her for 2 seconds longer than polite. "And my current title?" "Phased out." "My team?" "Now reports directly to Trent." He nodded like that was a good thing. "And my budget?" I asked. "We're streamlining spending." So that was a no. I looked at the corner of the table where the payroll binders used to sit, now replaced with a scented candle and a whiteboard that said live, laugh, lead. I stood up. "Got it." They smiled like I'd thank them. By Monday, I was working from a folding table in the copy room. My nameplate was gone. My email still worked, but only for incoming questions. Transportation, late attendance, unpaid invoices, missing equipment. Nobody told staff my role had changed. So when something broke, they still came to me. And I answered. Quietly, efficiently. No more explanations. I started keeping track, not just of problems, but of where the system actually snapped. Like when the transportation schedule got rerouted through a broken app, when subpay stalled because the approval chain was now just a Google form labeled, "Who disperses this?" I mapped every failure with timestamps and copies. At home, I pulled up the consulting LLC I'd revived. I created a fresh folder, clean build, K-12 Ops. I rebuilt my playbooks, not copies of what Franklin had used, but polished, updated versions based on everything I'd fixed over the last decade. Real frameworks, ownership clean, formats I designed, routing templates, vendor evaluation logs, IEP meeting trackers, security zone rotations, cafeteria fulfillment sheets, compliance checklists by quarter. I wasn't documenting a disaster. I was designing an escape plan. The next week, I found a flyer in the staff lounge that read, "Who's your why?" with a QR code to a passion poll. I scanned it out of curiosity. The first question was, "What legacy are you leaving at Franklin Regional?" I didn't laugh. I just added it to my folder, Culture Theater, Evidence. When the new HR liaison sent me a boilerplate email asking if I needed support adjusting to transition, I replied with one sentence, "Let me know when my final job description is approved in writing." She never responded. By then, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. But every time someone pinged me for help, and they still did, daily, I saved it. Because they didn't restructure me out. They just removed the only person who understood how the machine worked. And I was finally building something they couldn't delete. The permission slips came back signed, but the buses didn't show. Turned out, the streamlined field trip form Trent bragged about at the last staff huddle didn't include the mandatory state safety disclosures, which meant the district couldn't approve it, which meant the vendor didn't send drivers. 40 middle schoolers stood in the lobby with sack lunches and hoodies, waiting to go to the science center, while two teachers tried to explain that liability language had been missed. No one called me. I heard about it through a forwarded all-staff thread at 10:22 a.m. I saved a copy to my failure log, named the file, Trip Cancelled, No SAF4. At lunch, I got a voicemail from a bus vendor account manager I used to deal with weekly. She sounded pissed. "Hi, Nina. We've had no contact from your school in over 6 weeks, and we're holding on invoices totaling 33 grand. Our system says your approval chain was removed. Unless we hear something by end of day, we'll have to pause service." She didn't know I'd been realigned, but I wasn't surprised. Trent had bragged about cleaning up redundant approvals last month. He'd wiped the internal hierarchy on at least 4 forms, including transportation and cafeteria payments. I didn't respond to her message. I didn't warn anyone. I wasn't in charge anymore. The next day, the cafeteria vendor delivered a bulk lunch order to a middle school across town for our building. Turns out someone had updated the contact info in the supplier dashboard and put the location lead as a TikTok handle, literally, an @ username and a GIF as the profile photo. I stared at the email chain and just shook my head. Did I fix it? Number. I opened my personal tracking sheet and logged it under. Vendor error, calf drop, wrong site. Contact replaced. I didn't say a word. Let them sit in it. 2 days later, we had a budget presentation with an outside foundation. Big donor, someone who actually wrote checks with commas. I was there because I still technically managed some back-end reporting. Unpaid, of course. Trent stood at the front with a slideshow that had stock photos of kids with raised hands and phrases like targeted forward impact. He said, "We've optimized spend visibility and eliminated waste by over 60%. The donor, older guy in a navy suit, no tie, just watched. Didn't move. At one point, he turned his head, looked straight at me. Not an accident, not a casual glance. I held his stare. He gave the smallest nod. Nothing dramatic. But in that 2-second window, I knew something. He saw it. He saw the gaps, the fake metrics, the inflated language. He wasn't buying it, but he wasn't interrupting either. He was just watching. That kind of quiet? That's dangerous. That's somebody who's waiting to see how bad it really gets. After the meeting, Trent fist bumped the IT guy and said, "Nailed it, huh?" I walked past the front office and saw one of the assistant principals trying to staple together cafeteria reports that hadn't printed in order. She looked up at me. "Did you used to handle this?" "Not anymore," I said. She sighed. "Yeah, well, nobody does now." I walked away without saying anything else. That night, I opened up my contingency folder and duplicated it to an encrypted drive. Labeled it Phase 2, Passive Mode. Because the cracks weren't hairline anymore, the structure was splitting, and all I had to do was keep watching. The call came in just after noon, direct to my cell, not the school line. "Hey, Nina, it's Carl from Green Line Transit. We've been trying to reach someone over there for weeks. Nobody's replying. Your route contract expired last Friday." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the flickering ceiling light above the copy machine. "Yeah, that tracks," I said. He hesitated. "You still at Franklin?" "Technically." "Jesus," he muttered. "Can I forward you the overdue notices?" "Nope," I said. "You'll want to contact Strategic Transport Integration. That's what they call it now." He hung up with a frustrated sigh. I logged the call. Vendor contact, Green Line, expired. No renewal path. 5 minutes later, I checked my personal email and found a message from a parent I vaguely knew. Her kid was on an IEP and I'd helped coordinate meetings before. Her subject line just said, "Still you?" Inside, "I'm sorry to bother you. I know your role changed, but why has the IEP meeting been canceled 3 times? I took off work. No one replies to my emails anymore. Please help." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet titled Family Collateral, Tier 1. I added her name, date, and note. Canceled X3. No response chain active. The next morning, my phone rang 4 times before lunch. "Hey, do you still work there?" "Nina, do you know who's in charge of cafeteria rotation now?" "Is anyone managing the ESL attendance uploads?" I gave the same answer every time. Not my lane anymore. No one argued. They just sighed and hung up. That afternoon, I was heating up soup in the staff lounge when Marissa, a senior English teacher I trusted, pulled me aside. "You're not going to like this," she said, eyes low. "Board meeting slideshow last night. Mason presented that after-school data system you built last year, said it was part of his new community tracking pilot. My stomach didn't even flip. I just raised an eyebrow. "You sure it was mine?" She nodded. "Same icons, same layout, same typo in the legend. He didn't even fix it?" Back at my desk, or what was left of it, I pulled up the public board meeting archive and scanned through the slide deck. There it was. Page 14, After School Impact Tracking, Preliminary Results. The typo? Truancy rate over TM. The same one I made at midnight 3 months ago in a draft version I never shared publicly. He stole it, word for word, chart for chart. I didn't call him out. I didn't file anything. I just made a new folder. IP misuse, slide capture, source match, verified. Then I opened my DBA documents and finalized something I'd been building for the last 2 months, my official consulting package. District operations and logistics, strategic support and system rebuilds. I added 3 versions, one for charter groups, one for public districts, and one for foundations. Then I updated my rates. I didn't undercut. I priced real experience. 15 years of system design, emergency triage, compliance scaffolding, and vendor negotiation. Field tested, real world, no jargon. And I kept it quiet. No announcement, no LinkedIn post. I just saved the final package to a folder labeled "Ready when they break," because they were breaking, and I wasn't going to patch it for free anymore. By the time I got to the auditorium, the projector was already frozen on someone's desktop. 17 icons, a beach background, and a notification in the corner that said "Update failed." This was the big event, the district's donor showcase. Half the board was there, foundation reps, PTA leaders, a state legislator, all sitting in metal chairs under flickering fluorescent lights. I slid into a seat in the back. No name tag, no greeting. I wasn't on the program. Trent stood at the podium fidgeting with cables. Mason paced the front like a TED Talk was about to break out. The lights dimmed. Wrong slide deck. Instead of District Forward 2025 and beyond, we got Fall Family Engagement, Draft 2. You could hear the shuffle of papers and awkward throat clears across the room. Someone whispered, "Is this the right file?" Someone else said, "That calendar says 2022. One of the donors looked at his watch. A staff member ran on stage and swapped USB drives. Then the mic cut out. Twice. When Mason finally got control, he raised both arms like he was blessing the crowd. "Thanks for your patience. Innovation takes risks, and today we're showing bold transformation." He clicked to a slide labeled Efficiency Gains, Redundancy Eliminations, Phase 1. It was a spreadsheet-style chart with names in faded gray, mine included. Nina Monroe, previously under Operations Support, now phased out under our new model. "We've outgrown legacy roles," he said. Outgrown. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just sat there and took in the room. The donors didn't clap. A few exchanged looks. One jotted something down. Mason smiled like he'd nailed it. He moved on to a chart that showed nothing but colored bars and the word synergy. After the presentation, the lights came back up. People started talking in low, uncomfortable tones. One of the foundation reps, the same guy who caught my eye in the budget meeting, walked right over to me. Didn't ask permission, didn't say hello, just handed me a card and said, "Call me." I nodded once and slipped it into my pocket. Marissa, the English teacher, mouthed from across the aisle, "What the hell just happened?" I didn't answer. I walked out through the side exit, past a trash can overflowing with printed programs and cold coffee cups. No one tried to stop me. At home, my phone had 3 missed calls. One from the donor representative, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. Then I opened my email and saw the subject line. Consulting Availability Inquiry, Board Interest. It was from one of the quieter board members, the one who never said much during meetings, but always sat closest to the budget table. He'd written just one line. "If you were ever to consult, would you be open to a district-level pilot project?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then dragged the email into a new folder. Inbound, serious. No celebration, no relief, just movement. Because something had shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. The district-wide testing window opened on a Tuesday. Buses were late before first bell. By third period, 6 routes hadn't shown up at all. A teacher called me from the parking lot frantic. "We've got 20 kids still outside. Nobody's answering dispatch. What do we do?" I wasn't even logged into the district system anymore. I just said, "Try facilities. They're supposed to be routing overflow now." She cursed and hung up. Turned out someone, probably Trent, had pushed out a streamlined testing transit map without checking driver availability or bell schedules. They merged routes that overlapped on paper, not in real life. The result? Hundreds of kids late to the most important testing day of the year. That same afternoon, cafeteria inventory ran dry. No fruit, no hot trays, no milk. They served saltines and applesauce for lunch. The order hadn't been finalized over the weekend. No one knew whose job that was anymore. "Is it you?" someone asked me in the hallway. "Nope," I said. "Was reassigned under supply strategy last month." By Thursday, the PTA canceled the spring carnival. Permits hadn't been filed. Insurance wasn't verified. The PTA president posted a notice on the school Facebook page that just said, "Unfortunately, due to administrative gaps, the carnival has been postponed indefinitely." Comments exploded. Parents demanded answers. Some blamed teachers. Others blamed Mason. The truth? Nobody knew who was responsible anymore. Every org chart had changed 3 times. Job titles didn't match tasks. The left hand didn't know the right existed. Then Friday morning hit. I was halfway through a cup of gas station coffee when I got a message from one of the guidance counselors. Beth, the one who still had common sense. Subject, help. Inside, I tried to rebuild the attendance dashboard using the backup file from 2022. Something went wrong. Now nothing loads. I think I crashed it. I opened the public dashboard. Spinning wheel, blank screen. I checked the internal log. 0 syncs. She'd overwritten the master index with an archive that hadn't been updated since pre-COVID. Every attendance input across the entire district, gone. She called me, panicked. "I didn't mean to." "It's not your fault," I said flat. "They shouldn't have handed that system off without training." "Can it be fixed?" "Not with what they've got." We sat in silence for a beat. Then she whispered, "How the hell are we still open?" I didn't answer. I just closed the dashboard window and pulled up my personal consulting folder. 10 minutes later, I got the email. Subject pilot proposal, independent logistics model. From donor group, strategic partnerships. Hi Nina, we'd like to formally explore funding a standalone operations pilot, independent of the current district structure, modeled after your frameworks. Are you open to leading this? I read it twice, then once more, slower. No attachments, no fluff. Just the offer. It wasn't theoretical anymore. They were done watching the building drown. Now they were ready to build something else, and they wanted me to design it. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened my notes from the last 6 months. Labeled folder, collapse, preventable. Inside were 200 entries, missed payments, fake metrics, abandoned duties. None of it personal, all of it mapped. Because this wasn't just chaos, it was a blueprint of what not to do. And now, I had the green light to start over. Monday morning, 7:14 a.m., we all got the invite. Subject line, innovation alignment, mandatory, no agenda. No context, just a Zoom link for 10 o'clock and the word urgent. By 10, the entire district leadership team was jammed into the main conference room, plus whoever was still pretending to lead from behind a screen. Mason walked in holding an iced coffee and a tablet. "Thanks for jumping in," he said like we'd volunteered. "We need to realign some strategic insights before next week's board checkpoint." Translation: things were bad. Real bad. Truancy was up district-wide, double digits. Half the cafeteria vendors hadn't renewed contracts. Special ed was behind on compliance reporting. Budget gaps showed up in 2-line items no one had touched, which meant someone changed formulas without knowing it. You could feel the panic under the fluorescent lights. When the numbers came up on screen, one of the board members interrupted. "Sorry, but can someone explain? What exactly did Nina used to handle?" Silence. Mason stammered something about legacy logistics roles, but nobody answered the question. Then legal chimed in. "We've reviewed the core file systems used in attendance tracking, vendor coordination, and compliance scheduling," the rep said, flipping pages. "They were created using a private DBA owned by Nina Monroe. They were never migrated to district servers. Trent cleared his throat like he wanted to argue, then didn't. Someone from HR asked if that was even allowed. Legal didn't flinch. Nothing illegal about it. She built those systems independently. The district never claimed IP ownership. I sat 3 chairs from the back, arms crossed, watching them squirm. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail followed. I waited until the meeting ended, then stepped outside and hit play. Hi, Nina. This is Claudia Harrison with Franklin Foundation. I believe we met briefly. I'm reaching out to ask if you're available for transition design consulting. We're exploring next steps. Call me directly. I didn't call her back. I forwarded the voicemail to my private contact list. Subject line: referral only. Warren and company available. 15 minutes later, a reply came through. Understood. Forwarding to group. By the time I got home, a letter was waiting in my inbox. Formal, clean, professionally written. Subject: independent pilot proposal. Fully funded, Nina. The board of the Franklin Education Donor Collaborative has voted to fund a parallel operations initiative, modeled after the systems you developed. This pilot will operate independently from the current district infrastructure. You are invited to serve as Director of Transition and Systems Development. Scope, budget, and terms are outlined below. It was signed by 5 donor reps. One was the man who gave me his card after the showcase. I didn't smile, didn't cry. Just opened a new folder, launch. Started pulling the clean playbooks I'd been refining for months. I highlighted one line from the letter: your leadership will define the foundation of this initiative. They weren't asking for input. They were handing over the keys. No more seat at their table. This was my table now, and I already knew who I was hiring first. The board meeting felt like a funeral before it even started. Nobody was smiling. Mason sat stiff in a gray blazer that looked a size too small, flipping through index cards like they'd save him. Trent stood near the back, pretending to adjust the projector but mostly just avoiding eye contact. The room was half full, quiet, tense. The donors were there, legal, a few community representatives. The lights dimmed, and Mason walked to the front with a forced grin. Thanks for joining tonight. I'm excited to share our district innovation recap and strategic growth vision. His first slide came up, a blurry chart labeled Momentum Impact Zones. No legend, just colored blobs and arrows pointing in every direction. The second slide had a bar graph. No numbers, no axis labels, just rising rectangles under the title Engagement Uplift Trajectory. A few people looked around like maybe they'd missed something. They hadn't. Then came the real hit. Legal took the mic. Calm, direct. No emotion. In the last 3 months, our office has confirmed multiple violations regarding system access, data handling, and contract continuity. Internal processes were replaced without approval, documentation was erased or mishandled, and several state reporting requirements were missed. She paused. These failures have created legal exposure and put district funding at risk. Nobody clapped. Nobody moved. Mason stood there frozen, fingers still on the clicker. Then the donors stood. 4 of them walked to the front. The 5th stayed seated, the same guy who handed me his card at the showcase. The lead donor cleared his throat. We'd like to present a proposal for a new operations initiative, built independently of current district structures but designed to support them long-term. He clicked to a clean slide deck, white background, simple headers, actual numbers. Framework and system design by Nina Monroe, he said. Heads turned. Some people blinked like they'd forgotten I was even in the room. He kept going. The pilot is fully funded. It includes transportation logistics, compliance tracking, vendor alignment, and live dashboards tied to performance data. The guy seated in the back chimed in without looking up. Everything that's currently broken, basically. The board president shifted in her seat. And the leadership structure? The donor nodded. Nina will serve as Director of Transition and Systems Development. It's already been approved. Launch date is next month. Silence. Then one of the older board members, the one who barely spoke in meetings, always watched more than he talked, leaned back in his chair and let out a short laugh. She built the damn school, he said, shaking his head, and we let her walk. No one argued. Trent stepped toward the mic, opened his mouth, then closed it. Mason stayed rooted in place, expression blank. The donors sat back down. That was it. No fireworks. No meltdown. Just a shift. Quiet, clean, final. I gathered my binder, stood, and walked out the side door without saying a word. No one followed. No one stopped me. Out in the parking lot, the sky was that weird blue-gray that shows up right before a storm. I checked my phone. 10 unread emails, 4 of them asking how to apply for the new initiative. I texted back one line, "Details coming Monday." And that was it. The school hadn't burned down. It had hollowed out. And now we were building something next to the ruins. Not in spite of them, but because of them. Mason tried to get ahead of it. The following week, he called a full staff meeting in the cafeteria. They set up folding chairs, bought a tray of cookies, put his face on the slideshow again. He stood at the front with that politician smile and said, "I know it's been a tough few months, but I want to be clear. We're all on the same team." Silence. Not one clap, not one nod. A teacher sneezed. Someone near the back coughed into their sleeve. That was it. Then the double doors opened. I walked in with the donor group. Nothing flashy, just 4 of us, calm and quiet. I carried a manila folder in one hand. We stopped beside the front table. I opened the folder and laid out 3 signed letters of commitment. First one, Marissa, the senior English teacher. Second, Beth, the guidance counselor. Third, Greg Anderson, assistant principal. The HR rep in the corner literally choked on her coffee when she read the names. Greg had been at Franklin for over a decade. Beth ran the IEP program. I looked right at Mason, didn't raise my voice, didn't drag it out. I said, flat and calm, "You fired the infrastructure. I'm building the institution." That was it. No dramatic exit, no applause. We turned around and left through the same doors we came in. 2 weeks later, the new operation launched. No slogans, no fake charts, no beanbags. Just working systems, live dashboards, open communication, and a growing waitlist of people who actually wanted to do the job right. I didn't post about it online. I didn't take interviews. I just worked. Quiet, precise, focused. I never raised my voice. I just kept receipts, and eventually, the right people noticed.